Elia's ward had learned many strange customs since humanity joined the Galactic Concord, but nothing prepared him for the moment the chamber went silent because of a single sentence. The Concord Hall was vast, shaped like a slow spiral, with floating platforms for each species. Light from a distant star filtered through the transparent dome above, casting soft colors across metal, crystal, and living wood. Elias stood on Earth's platform, hands clasped behind his back, face calm in the way human diplomats were trained to master. Inside, his mind was already running through trade clauses and defense agreements. High Delegate Saris of the Triarch clan stepped forward. She was tall, her skin a smooth silver blue, her eyes layered like polished glass. She carried herself with the calm confidence of someone used to being obeyed. When she spoke, the translation field rendered her voice steady and clear. "For lasting stability between the Triarch clans and humanity," Saris said, "I invoke the right of binding. I choose Elia's Ward of Earth. We usually use signed agreements." Humans were new, unpredictable, and now apparently part of a ritual that few outsiders truly understood. Elias took a slow breath. "Delegate Saris," he said, choosing each word with care, "I believe there may be details we should discuss." "Ready or not?" Saris inclined her head. "The Triarch clans are governed by sibling unity. I am one of 5 sisters. Each controls a pillar of our civilization. Strategy, knowledge, trade, expansion, balance. No outsider may bind with one without standing for all. It is about survival. You're asking one human to become part of an alien ruling structure." He thought of the oath he had taken, not to power, but to responsibility. "I can't answer alone," he said. "You will," Saris replied, "but you will listen first." She questioned human military history, not with threat but with curiosity. Lume, keeper of knowledge, was the opposite. She asked endless questions, fascinated by human art, philosophy, and the strange human habit of storytelling even in crisis. Vale, master of trade, was sharp and skeptical. She challenged Elias openly, pointing out humanity's short galactic history and limited resources. And then there was Kesh, guardian of the frontier. She had seen more of the galaxy's dangers than the others and trusted none of them easily, especially a human. Elias did not try to impress them. He listened. When Taran spoke of conflict, he spoke of restraint. When Vale argued economics, he spoke of fairness and long-term trust. When Lume asked about human strength, he spoke not of weapons, but of persistence. When Kesh questioned his courage, he admitted fear without shame. This unsettled them more than confidence ever could. During one gathering, Vale finally asked the question hanging in the air. "Why do you accept this? You gain little." "On Earth, when you marry into a family," he said, "you don't just choose one person, you choose their problems, their history, their people. Humans don't always do it well, but we understand the idea." Humanity was no longer just a participant. It was becoming entangled, pressure mounted. A minor trade disruption struck one of the Triarch-controlled routes. Normally, blame would be assigned instantly, arguments following like clockwork. This time, the sisters hesitated. Elias spoke up. "On Earth, when systems fail, the first step is not blame, it's diagnosis. And if diagnosis reveals fault..." He was not falling into a storybook union. He was standing at the edge of a cultural shift that could either stabilize a region of space or shatter it. A message arrived from Earth Command, carefully worded, concerned, supportive but cautious. Elias recorded his reply. "This is not about me," he said to the camera. "This is about showing the galaxy how humans handle responsibility when it is uncomfortable." The days after the first agreement did not become easier. In fact, they became heavier. Elias Ward began to understand that accepting responsibility was only the first step. Living inside it was something else entirely. The Triarch residence floated in stable orbit above a blue-white gas giant. From a distance it looked calm, almost peaceful, but inside it was always moving. Corridors shifted to meet their occupants. Walls changed texture depending on who passed. Elias had been given quarters designed for human comfort, but even there the quiet never felt complete. Every sister had her own domain, her own rhythm, and her own expectations. Saris remained the public face. She handled formal meetings, spoke to the conquered, and stood beside Elias when cameras and observers were present. To the outside galaxy, they already looked like a united front. Behind closed doors, unity was still fragile. Taran summoned Elias early one cycle. Her chamber was sparse, filled with floating symbols that represented fleets, borders, and probabilities. She did not offer him a seat. "You are human," she said, as if stating a fact that needed constant reminder. "Humans value flexibility. Explain how that applies to defense." "Bending can become weakness." She greeted Elias with visible excitement. "I reviewed human literature," she said. "You tell stories about small individuals changing large systems. Is this a belief or entertainment?" Lume listened closely, recording everything. "You accept inefficiency," she said. "We survive because of it," Elias answered. "Perfection doesn't adapt well." "Humans lack scale," she said. "Your economy is young. Why should we trust your judgment?" "Careful traders miss opportunities." "You speak well," she said without looking at him, "but words don't stop threats." The pressure grew outside the Triarch residence. Other species began testing boundaries. Small provocations appeared, delayed shipments, conflicting legal claims, nothing open but nothing accidental. The sisters argued more often. Taran wanted firm responses. Vale warned against economic escalation. Kesh pushed for stronger frontier presence. Lume suggested observation and study. They looked to Elias. The weight of their attention was new. Humans debated loudly, but responsibility was usually shared across many layers. Here, expectation gathered on him like gravity. Elias asked for something unusual. "I want a shared council," he said, "not sequential meetings together." Speaking together risked conflict. Saras considered it. This may cause fracture. Humans learned this the hard way. A rival coalition attempted a larger test. A legal challenge threatened to isolate one Triarch-controlled system under the excuse of regulatory review. Panic spread through trade networks. Vale prepared countermeasures. Taran analyzed defensive implications. Kesh readied patrols. Elias asked one question: "What happens if we cooperate instead of contest?" He proposed transparency, shared audits, open data access, a human concept that assumed honesty could disarm suspicion. "It exposes weakness," Kesh warned. "It builds trust," Elias replied. "And if trust fails, we learn who not to trust." For the first time, the sisters did not see Elias as an outsider managing them. They saw him as a connector. That night, Saras joined Elias in observation silence, a Triarch tradition rarely shared. "You are changing us," she said. "I'm learning from you," Elias replied. "You are tired," she observed. "Yes," Elias admitted, "but this is what humans do. We carry weight until systems grow strong enough to share it." He was representing a way of handling complexity without breaking. He was still not ready, but readiness no longer mattered, because the galaxy had begun adjusting itself around humanity's presence, and once that happened, there was no returning to old patterns. The sisters knew it. The conquered knew it. And Elias Ward understood that the real test was still coming. The warning did not arrive with alarms or flashing signals. That was what made it dangerous. Elias Ward was in the shared council chamber when the first report came in. It was short, calm, and almost polite. A neutral monitoring group within the Conquered had detected irregular coordination along several outer systems connected to Triarch trade and transit routes. No accusations, no demands, just a note. Taran read it twice. "This is not random." "Or how divided?" "Let's not rush," Elias said. "Speed matters, but clarity matters more." Of long, cold standoffs, silent competitions, and moments where restraint mattered more than force. "We observe back," he said, "and we make it clear we're not afraid of being seen." As one structure, the irregular coordination paused. For 3 quiet cycles, nothing happened. Then everything did. A cascade failure struck a logistics hub near the frontier, not an attack. A system overload caused by conflicting automated protocols installed decades earlier. Ships were delayed, supplies backed up, communications slowed. Normally, this would have been manageable. But with so many eyes watching, rumors spread faster than facts. "This is it," Kesh said. "They will move now." "Who owns this problem?" he asked. The sisters exchanged looks. "By custom," Taran said, "it falls between domains." Frontier crews assisted technicians. Knowledge keepers coordinated communication. It was messy. There were disagreements, confusion, moments where old habits tried to reassert themselves, but the system stabilized faster than predicted. Observers noted something unusual. There was no attempt to assign fault, no public explanation designed to protect reputation. Just progress reports and clear timelines. The crisis ended without spectacle, and that strangely unsettled the watchers even more. Soon after, the real test revealed itself. A formal motion was introduced in the Concord. It proposed a review of eligibility for shared governance entities. The language was careful, neutral, and legal, but the intent was clear. Limit the triarch model. Limit humanity's growing influence. The chamber filled again just as it had on the day of the binding announcement. This time, Elias stood beside Saris by choice, not ceremony. Delegates spoke in measured tones, concerns about stability, about precedent, about unproven cooperation models. He did not defend the triarch clans. He spoke about responsibility. Humans come from a world that survived because no single group could stand alone, he said. We are not efficient, we argue, we fail often, but we learned that shared responsibility does not weaken systems, it strengthens them. It is resilient because it adapts. No, Elias agreed, but they will change tactics. That night he sent another message to Earth, shorter this time. We're not being tested because we're weak, he said. We're being tested because we're different. The stars felt closer now, less distant. Saris joined him. You are becoming part of this structure, she said. I already am, Elias replied, whether I intended to be or not. Then we will pay attention together. And when that moment came, humanity would be judged not by its strength, but by what it chose to stand for. The message that changed everything arrived without warning and without a clear sender. It appeared first in Lume's data streams, hidden among harmless informational traffic. At a glance, it looked like a routine request for archival access, but Lume noticed a pattern that did not belong. She called the others immediately. Elias arrived at the shared council chamber to find all 5 sisters already present. The air felt tight, like a system holding its breath. This is not a threat, Lume said. It is an invitation. The message came from a loose alignment of systems that often operated on the edges of conquered authority. They were not enemies, not allies either. They were observers, traders, and quiet influencers, groups that rarely acted openly but shaped outcomes from behind. They are forming a new coalition, Vale said after reviewing the figures. Not officially, quietly. And they want something from us. The point of influence. A position as an independent human mediator beyond triarch alignment. You understand this is a loyalty test. United by calculation, they spoke politely, praised Elias' role, admired human adaptability, spoke of how rare it was for a single individual to bridge systems so effectively. We believe you are constrained, one of them said, bound by obligations that limit your potential. Freedom from inherited conflicts. They spoke of future stability, of reduced risk, of a galaxy that preferred predictable actors. You are a stabilizer, they said, but stabilizers should not belong to any one structure. I stabilize by standing with. Markets fluctuated, observers speculated, the sisters felt it immediately. Say nothing, Taran advised. Let actions speak. Not a rebuttal, a statement. Saris spoke first, outlining triarch unity, then Taran explained adaptive defense. Vale addressed economic stability. Lume shared data transparency. Finally, Elias spoke. I was offered independence, he said simply. I declined. But because humans do not believe stability comes from standing above others, it comes from standing beside them. The coalition that had approached Elias withdrew their influence slowly, unwilling to escalate openly. Their attempt to separate the human from the structure had failed, but something else happened instead. Other species began requesting shared councils, mixed leadership models, human advisors not as rulers but as integrators. Humanity was no longer just an ally, it was a reference point. That night Elias finally allowed himself to rest, not alone but in shared silence with the sisters. You chose us, Sarah said. I chose responsibility, Elias replied. You came with it. Lume recorded nothing, simply observed. Far beyond their systems, calculations shifted again. The galaxy had tested loyalty and found something it did not expect. Not obedience, not ambition, but commitment. And that, more than any fleet or resource, was what truly changed the balance. Elias Ward slept knowing the next challenge would be harder than any before. Because now the question was no longer whether humanity belonged. It was how much the galaxy would come to depend on it. The final challenge did not come as an attack, a motion, or a secret offer. It came as a request. The Conquered transmitted a priority message to all major powers. Its language was careful, neutral, and heavy with meaning. A multi-system crisis was unfolding beyond any single territory. Trade routes were destabilizing at once. Refugee movements were increasing. Automated governance systems across different civilizations were reacting to each other in harmful loops. No one system caused it. No one system could fix it alone. For the first time in recorded conquered history, the message did not ask for the strongest fleets or the richest contributors. It asked for coordination leadership. And almost without debate, eyes turned toward the same place, the Triarch clans, and the human among them. Elia's ward stood in the shared council chamber as the request played out. The sisters were silent, absorbing the weight of what was being asked. This was larger than their domains, larger than politics. "This is beyond precedent," Taran said at last. "If we accept, failure will be visible to all. This is why they tested us. We don't solve this for them, we help them solve it together." Elias and the sisters built shared task groups that ignored old boundaries. Engineers from one species worked with logisticians from another. Observers were given real authority instead of symbolic roles. Mistakes happened. Instead of hiding them, they were shared. That alone changed everything. The crisis slowed, then stabilized, then reversed. Trade routes reopened, not exactly as before, but better connected. Refugee flows turned into resettlement programs. Automated systems were rewritten with shared safeguards. The galaxy did not feel conquered. It felt supported. When the final reports came in, the conquered did something unprecedented again. It did not grant titles or territories. It adopted a principle. Shared responsibility governance. The Triarch model influenced by human practice became a reference framework, not mandatory, not enforced, available. Elias watched as species that had once dismissed humanity now studied its history with genuine interest. Not the wars, not the conflicts, the recoveries, the rebuilds, the times humans had failed, learned, and continued anyway. Back at the Triarch residence, life changed subtly. The sisters argued less sharply, not because they agreed more, but because disagreement no longer felt threatening. Trust had replaced fear. One quiet cycle, Elias found himself once again at the observation window. He thought of Earth, of how small it had seemed when humanity first looked outward. Saris joined him. "You never sought authority," she said, "yet you carry it." Binding with humanity meant inheriting connection, not dominance, not control, connection. Kesh approached them. "Frontier reports are stable." He sent one last message to Earth, not as a diplomat, but as a human. "We didn't win," he said. "We joined, and that made the difference." There was no single battle, no declaration, just a period where problems stopped being someone else's fault and started being everyone's work. And at the center of that shift stood a simple truth the universe had learned slowly. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they refused to walk away. They stayed. They adapted. They carried weight until others could carry it too. And once that happened, the galaxy was no longer divided the way it had been before. It was connected, ready or not.